Hi, I'm Tom Metzger, your host for Race and Reason. Race and Reason, that show dedicated to free speech. That small island of free speech in a sea of controlled and managed news. And now we go to David Wiley, my co-host, who will introduce our first guest of the day.
Well, thank you, Tom. To my left, we have Dr. Henry Corey, who is a long-time political activist, and he's here today to relate some of his experiences with his past political activity. Welcome to the show, Henry.
Thank you.
Oh.
It's good to see you again, Henry. It's been a while. We've touched bases with each other before, and you live here in Southern California. Whereabouts in Southern California?
I live in Oceanside, California, just outside of Camp Pendleton, the world's largest Marine Corps base.
Well, and you're retired Marine Corps?
Yes, I'm retired from the Marine Corps.
And in Oceanside, I hear one side says you're a gadfly, and the other side says you're a community activist, and I guess there's a little of both?
Yes, I don't care what they say as long as they say something.
You get right up there and tell them what you think.
I fought for freedom of the press and speech in 2 wars, and I would rather die telling our leaders what it's like not to have it here in the land of the free and home of the brave. And they get upset, but if I handle it right, they don't shoot me.
Well, you know, I remember we upset quite a few people when you endorsed my candidacy for the run for the congressional seat.
Oh, Lord, we had a whole lot of people. We had a whole lot of people lose their cool on that. As a matter of fact, I was a student at Mariposa College, and all I did was put in a letter requesting to put a booth up for Tom Metzger, and gee whiz, it went through. You're talking about red tape, and finally they expelled me from the Black Student Union. And my friends in the ACLU, we offered to sue the college, and that put me in Dr. McDonald's office. So we accomplished more good.
It seems very interesting that the people who deny freedom of speech come from all sides of the board, all races.
There's no label as you can give to somebody and have that label mean that that person represents a certain thing. It seems like it doesn't work that way.
Well, here is a free and democratic election.
Obviously.
And Henry writes a letter just being nice, and all of a sudden he's aced out of several groups. And then we crossed paths again in Los Angeles at the Press Club when we came together, Americans United for Jobs. We had Albert Tapia of the Imperial County Mexican Consul. We had you representing the black working community, and we had a man representing the Teamsters, or not the Teamsters, but truckers, talking about illegal aliens and how it's affecting all of us here in the United States. And you were quite vocal on that. And I believe we almost brought down the House that day, too.
Yeah, that was, I mean, a lot of people got a lot of things that they've been fighting about. They looked at it from the other side of the coin, just like science. But it, however, it turned out to be quite dangerous for me. A lot of threats were made by different groups, and the NAACP really got upset. I mean, what was happening was what the NAACP has been advocating for years, and then when it happened, they can't take it. It's just like we fight for change, and when change comes, no, I don't want it, I'm not ready for it. And it takes freedom of speech is one I think are great mental healers. And may I say this? One of the things I like about the John Birch Society, and I've been associated with the John Birch Society many, many years, the founder, Robert Welch, said, the whole world is a big insane asylum, and it's run by the worst patients.
Well, I remember another incident that sort of got things going pretty hot. And you want to tell us about that incident about the NAACP membership?
Oh, that was, it was, I mean, some of the, not only, I mean, that was small compared to, I put your application in before the VFW, Veteran of Foreign Wars in Oceanside, and it was, and oh Lord, we discussed that, and so then I withdraw your application. And the NAACP, funny enough, they expelled me from the local chapter when you become a member of the NAACP. But Dr. Ben Hooks, they accepted it. They thanked me for working for the NAACP. But after, when President Reagan let me buy a job from him, they gave me a BCD and kicked me out of the NAACP. And if I think we ought to change the name or get rid of Ben Hooks.
Well, what I wanted to do, I think that was during one of my political things, I wanted to address the NAACP convention that was being held in Southern California to talk purely about the illegal alien problem as it affected both the black community and the white working community.
Well, the American community.
And believe it or not, I could not address the people. There was a big uproar, and of course the old smoke screen went up to obscure the real issues of what we wanted to talk about. In fact, Dr. Ben Yellen from Imperial County wanted to address them on the same subject and on land for the small farmers. And they wouldn't let him speak to the convention either, so it got pretty hot during that period. Well, this VFW thing really got going too.
It's still going. It's still going. But now the positive, we gain their attention, and now we motivate.
Well, Henry, as a black working person, even though you're retired Marine Corps, I know that that doesn't keep you alive. What do you feel? Still, I think our viewers like to know about this illegal alien problem and jobs and the fact that corporations are exporting plants all over the world and there are just not enough jobs for everybody. What do you think's happening here?
There's so many sides to that issue, and I'll give you my personal one. Speaking of illegal aliens, when I came back from Vietnam, maybe I wasn't radical when I went in the military. And in fact, I did not have a falsely inflated ego. I had an inferiority complex. But under battle, I saw that I could function. So when I came back, I felt like an illegal alien because I was speaking out on issues. And as a matter of fact, even when my divorce, my retired military pay was all exhausted, and child support and alimony. And there was no jobs open, so I had to compete personally with the illegal aliens. I went to San Marcos Farm Labor Office, and I filled out my application, and I was turned down for farm labor because I hadn't had any experience in the past 20 years. And I blew up, hoping that they would arrest me, and maybe I get a little dab of free press. But that didn't happen. So happened the owner, the director of farm labor heard my cry, and he come out. The man lost his job, and I started getting jobs in farm labor. And there's the man that owns the farm, he's fighting RS. RS is on him, and he's trying to make a profit. And we do not compete with the illegal aliens. They come over here, and 2 days later they got a job, and some of us who walk around for 5 years looking for a job.
Well, you know, the same thing happened to Albert Tapia, who worked with us on Americans United for Jobs, who, like I say, was the head of the Imperial County Mexican Consul and a citizen of the United States and a Mexican-American. He come back from Korea as a veteran, and he had driven trucks before he went in, came back, tried to get his trucking job, and illegal aliens were driving the trucks.
Well,
you see, so there's a misconception that people that happen to be Mexicans, Mexican-Americans in heritage are all for this illegal immigration, which maybe the exploiters, political demagogues are, but I don't believe a lot of the people who think are.
Well, this is bringing back an old memory for me, Tom. After I got out of the Army, after the Vietnam, my Vietnam stint, as I was walking out the door and they were waving goodbye to me, they said, "Now remember, go to the state unemployment office and you can draw unemployment for, you know, the period that you're unemployed because you're entitled to it, you're a veteran and you worked for your country and all this kind of stuff." So I go to the unemployment office, and a very cold-eyed lady said that on my second visit that she didn't believe I was looking for a job, and that was her value judgment, and therefore she wasn't going to give me unemployment. She said, well, it kicked me out the door, and that was it. I never got any aid whatsoever, and frankly, I was on the streets for a couple of weeks before I could get myself together, and I was very disillusioned with this society.
Isn't it amazing how when they want to build the war fever and they run all the patriotic movies and all of a sudden the Vietnam vets are okay again and because they're probably getting ready for something in Central America.
Sure.
You're such wonderful guys, you know, and march off the war and you're terrific. and then you come back, and you know, people should go to these these hospitals for the military, the veterans. They should see how veterans are treated in the veterans hospitals.
A Vietnam veteran cannot go to a veterans hospital now unless you're dying.
Service-connected.
Well, service-connected and dying.
Do you have knowledge of this, of the shabby treatment?
Yeah. See, after World War I, the shabby treatment of the veteran, when the war is over, even though it was a victory war, and this march on Washington, and the big fight between General MacArthur and President Truman. Truman was in the tents that Dwight D. Eisenhower burnt and chased the veterans out by bayonets. That's World War I.
Coxey's army.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then the fact is, okay, we got to silence the veteran. They give us the DAV, the American Legion, and the VFW. And Lord have mercy, the KKK give me more freedom in speech than I can get from either of those patriotic groups or the NAACP.
You know, the misconception that this country has just been rolling along in Valhalla all these decades and a couple of 100 years is a misconception that a lot of the young people, I guess, pick up in schools. They don't realize the oppression against working people in the United States. And whereas Henry, as a black person, probably is more aware, more sensitive to it than the average white. I notice a lot of white young people don't realize what white workers went through in this country, and workers in general, to get a decent wage. And the riots and things that happen.
We look at the question of slavery. The northern factory owner did not want slaves. There was no honor in owning a slave. He was happier to pay slave wages.
Wage slavery.
Wage slavery.
Right.
All right. And so that, but however, the race that come together fought and died, and now a Yankee and a rebel can sit down and have coffee together. Well, but look at the bloodshed that went there. But then that was authorized bloodshed. When our great government authorized bloodshed, it's okay.
You know, I was talking to a reporter this morning on the phone, and she said something about interviewing people who were extremist groups. And I said, do you mean the United States government? Because as far as I'm concerned, the United States government has become the #1 extremist and terrorist do the exporting of tremendous amounts of weapons to countries, and this war between capitalism and Marxism, just keeping the whole world like this all the time, where people cannot just live in peace.
Not to mention how when anybody opposes them, they quietly fly a helicopter overhead and drop a bomb.
You know, that's very interesting. Now, I was called on issues, and one of the issues was the MOVE group in Philadelphia, and I think some of the press was somewhat surprised, because I said, well, this is an example of runaway government. It's an example of oppressive government, and it wouldn't make any difference whether those people would have been black in the MOVE organization or white working class people over here. They would drop the same bomb. So I took the position of basically supporting the people. Very interesting. Did you hear that, Henry? That none of those people were on welfare.
That's true.
They were trying to stay out, keep the government off their back and separate.
Yeah.
Have you thought much about that, these recent events in Philadelphia?
Yes. It's funny. See, for instance, I think we talk, you mentioned black and white. Mm-hmm. If we look at it from a high level, and we get up to the superconscious, I happen to believe that we have a superconscious, a subconscious, and a conscious. And when we get on that superconscious level, there's no difference. But it's hard for the mind to change. And some of the most racist minds I have encountered have been embedded in black bodies. And it's, right now I notice we have a black mayor of Philadelphia. And it was, I don't know, if it had been a white mayor, he'd have really been taking it from people like the NAACP. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But now it's really no difference. Really, if you get right down to it, from a high mental point of view.
Well, I think comes down to the fact that when people want to become bureaucrats and exploiters, it doesn't make much color difference what color they are. They all seem to say the same tactic.
When that money is rolling, boy,
when that corruption
all
gets
green.
going, yeah, and you found that in your community. I know. I've read the press. You've taken a lot of heat there from what do you call those blacks up in City Hall there that?
Oh, well, there's so many names for him.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I guess when President Reagan was our governor, and I love President Reagan, main for the patriotic help he has given me as a veteran. And I was just having fun. I mean, life is, you can have fun fighting these things. I mean, it's enjoyable, and I love it. And when I'm dead and gone, I'll quit. But I spelt his name, R-E-G-G-I-N, and went back to August 17, 16, 19, when that word spelled backwards become derogatory. And I was charged with, about 8 counts of slander. But I said, what the heck, I'll go to jail. So anyway, I didn't go buy a lawyer. I didn't go hire a lawyer. I would show them the case, and they wanted money up front, so I went as my own defense counselor. And I challenged the system. And the system got to be challenged.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about, I know you've been attacked by phone by this Jewish Defense League because you said a couple of kind words about me.
Like phone threats?
He was
death threats? Well, I get them all the time.
I got those, and I got a lot of them. But the beautiful thing about that, the Jews that was attacking me, threatening to assassinate me, they were very limited educated Jews. And I'd let him get his poison out. I'd play psychiatrist. And I'd listen, and I'd let him spit all his poison out. And then I'd start questioning him about the history of the Jews. Tell him a little bit about Hallel. Do you know Hallel? And then show him, and I made more friends out of that from the Jews. The fact is, Rabbi Dr. Brunner, the nephew of Albert Einstein, who has lost his mother and father in Germany, and he's suffered over here, and I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from him.
Well, you work with him somewhat. You're associated.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's interesting that he once spoke on the same platform as Gerald L.K. Smith, because Dr. Bronner has told me on occasion that he has been very critical of the general rabbi type situation, and in turn he has been attacked viciously.
You mean like the leaders of the synagogue?
Yeah, organized, be like Christians attacking organized preachers that preach for profit, see? And Dr. Bronner has attacked the rabbis the same way, and they really have gotten on his case to pass it. You probably know more about that.
Yeah, it was, he was, I guess, what you would say, if I was a rabbi and under the attack of Dr. Brunner's tongue, I would be upset. But he is not. I guess he's not as hard on the rabbis today as he were yesterday. But now, one of the beautiful thing about, I think, is the World Congress of Rabbis. Maybe it's a different terminology. Just last week, they approved having female rabbis. And I really like that because I'm a leader of men and a follower of women.
I've heard you say that before. I remember that one, Dave. Leader of men, a follower of women.
And I think they should have burnt those brooms instead of the women.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I know that Dr. Bronner's been attacked quite a bit by the IRS, too. They tried to wipe him out, too. As he was a political activist.
You always start to wonder, Tom, about who's got their fingers in the government. Because you know that everyone knows that once in a while that something unusual happens. Well, why are they investigating this person or that person? And they always know that, well, right at the wrong political time, some candidate is investigated by the IRS. Very coincidental. I mean, everybody knows it. And who's pulling the strings? Who's in there in the IRS is doing all that?
Well, it's interesting. Seems like any time a person becomes very vocal and attracts their attention, they sure like to go to work on them. There's some things I would like to ask you, Henry, speaking as a black man. What is your opinion of Louis Farrakhan as a Muslim leader?
I haven't studied him enough to really give a, I guess, intelligent opinion, and I'm far from him simply because I've been so busy. I haven't had time to view the television and give it serious reading.
What about Malcolm X?
Oh my Lord, Malcolm X! Malcolm X was my hero simply because we merged out of the same environment, and Malcolm was open, and he was a thinking man. And he spoke the truth as he understood it. And he called you a blue-eyed devil for 15 years, you know? And he was invited to all the leading colleges on television. And the second trip, he journeyed to Mecca. A person with a brother, Muslim, with blonde hair and blue eyes, took Malcolm home and let Malcolm sleep in his bed while the Muslim brother slept on the floor. Changes Malcolm's mind chemistry, call it subconscious, superconscious, whatever. So Malcolm came back to America, and he made the statement, says, when you point your finger at the white race and call them blue-eyed devils, turn your hand over and look at the 3 fingers pointing at yourself, and other things that he made. Oh, he was, that was the end of his religious freedom of speech.
What about why he got shot? Because he made a turnover, or? Oh, I see.
Well,
because he offended other Muslims.
What about? Now I understand that Malcolm X's father worked with Marcus Garvey, and that his father was assassinated, pushed in front of a train. I've read several of his books. And now there was a man. Now it's interesting that Malcolm went to Jamaica because that was where Marcus Garvey had come from. And what did you think of a man was Marcus Garvey way ahead of his time or way behind his time? And he sure ended up in a mess.
I think he was on time. However, at that time, I would have probably been following him. But the thing is, he was taking advantage of a situation, a needed situation, and he was selling tickets on a ship line, and they had no ship.
Well, now wait a minute. Now, from what I read, was that some of these big capitalists, when they said that they were going to take hundreds of thousands of black people out of the United States to Africa, started saying, hey, where's the cheap labor going to go? And they started pulling the props out from under Marcus Garvey. You see, it was interesting, you know, everything was okay, you know, black nationalism like that, about black separatism. Up until that point, when the big shots started looking, they might lose some money, then Marcus Garvey became unpopular.
See,
is that the way you read it?
Yes, just the same thing. Now we talk about the illegal alien problem. If it was a threat to the man with money, they would be impossible to get across that border.
Well, they are having quite a bit of problem in Washington with the illegal alien trying to get them to be citizens, and there's those that are for, those that are against, and they don't know what to do about it. I'm surprised that all the illegal aliens don't want to be citizens, but when you think about it, then they'd have to pay taxes, they'd have to serve in the armed forces. You know, they have to do everything every other citizen does, and right now they can just hide in their hole, raise their families.
Dr. Corey's point is well taken, that immediately when it becomes something that's not an advantage to the elitists, to the big corporate farmers and so forth, well, they no longer would love the illegal alien. You see this feigned humanitarianism that don't we love our Spanish-speaking people, all that is all phony with most of these people.
But a thing we got to look at, and I mean hurt, I try to look at it from every angle. And down south, we have a lot, I mean, gosh, everybody's talking, in the black community we're talking about the black farmer that is losing his land. But if you look at it, I mean, the white farmer is losing his land also.
Right.
And, but now one of the things, there's a problem in California, but it don't seem to be that farmer in California is under the same threat that our southern farmer is. And getting back to President Reagan and some of the things that he has attacked, and that's been many. One of them is the educational system, and re-educating. I mean, it's a disgrace to work. I mean, there's a lot of people 25 years old, never had a job. and they don't know how to work, and there's no honor in working. And now the educational system, it did show you how to be a white collar, but they don't show you how to be a blue collar.
That's true, but and let's go back to that.
There's quite a bit of skill involved in the skill trades.
Well, let's go back to that farming situation. This is very important, and I think there needs to be more dialogue between black farmers, white farmers, your smaller farmer people. And in the Imperial Valley, we exposed all kinds of corruption over there with farm home loans and how the big millionaires were getting all the loans. Greased through Washington.
When the veterans weren't getting any.
No, and that's what the whole Imperial County was
for.
It was all set up way back in Theodore Roosevelt, was for the veterans.
Yeah.
And even after World War II, they were promised all this land. And of course, under the Carter administration, you got to say for President Carter, he tried to hold up that 200-acre limit, which would have allowed more people that didn't have a lot of money to have a farm. But when I believe it was when Reagan came along, well, that was gone. As far as I'm concerned, Reagan is not a friend of the small farmer. I just came back from the Middle West. You ought to hear my cousins and so forth on these small farms talk about the administration.
Reagan is a friend of Reagan, but he don't mind you helping yourself. And that's his message. You notice the first time he shook the education system up so much, and I hope he shake it more, that for the first time in history they lobbied to get him out of office. The first time the teachers union ever got involved politically to endorse a president as this Walter Mondale. And
they did get very active, and definitely there's problems in the schools. Now, before the show ends, we just have a few minutes here, a couple of minutes actually. You spoke a little bit, wanted to speak a little bit about Karl Marx and Freud when we were out here.
You mentioned Jimmy Carter. Let me tell you, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter and with, studying Freud. The first book Freud wrote was One World Without Jews, and Hitler read that and implemented it. Okay? I thought
that was Karl Marx.
Karl Marx wrote his first book was One World Without Jews. But if you read the book and then the history of Hitler, you see how Hitler used it. Excuse me.
Have you got a copy of that book? I've never been able to find one.
That is a rare book.
Yeah, I get your copy.
Oh,
I get your copy.
Like to read it.
Then his next book, 4 years later, was the Communist Manifesto. And we come close to accepting it after the Soviet Union, but realized he was Jewish. Karl Marx was Jewish. And J. Edgar Hoover was a hero of mine, so was Dr. Martin Luther King, and so was Nikita Khrushchev. But if you study the American Baptist doctrine, it's impossible to tell that from the Communist Manifesto. And no throwing no stones at Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter is a Baptist, and Jesse Jackson is a Baptist, and Billy Graham is a Baptist. And they can go to the Soviet Union and these communist countries and preach. And Lord have mercy, now I really got sick when Muhammad Ali, and I'm hurting. You was over there. No, heck no, I'm not going. But then the thing is, the first thing President Jimmy Carter pardoned all the draft dodgers, make Muhammad Ali a special agent and send him to the Soviet Union.
I got a feeling that we're just getting warmed up. And we got just a few seconds left in the show. Would you like to come back?
I'd love to come back.
We'll do it again.
Pick up where we just left.
I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today. And stay tuned. You'll see our name of the show, the address of both our show and the guest.